Hi, man. Audrey was good, brother. I'm chilling.
Man, thank you, man. I just wanted to get a quick one in, man. I've been trying to, man, with this, trying to in my phone, because I'm like trying to like upgrade, you know what I'm saying, the space, the memory space on there, because I've been doing a lot of interviews, but I'm doing it on not, I'm trying to do it on my iPhone, because I got like a gimbal and some other shit, because now the interviews, I'm starting to get more people that want to interview, and I'm trying to do an old school holding the phone and shit. So I'm like, man, I gotta upgrade my stuff, but that's another story, man. But yeah, man, my cousin was telling me she wanted to purchase a paint from you too. She was like, I gotta get mine on
too. So I was very excited about that as well, my brother. So you know what I mean. But hey, I'm gonna ask you my first question. What did you think about the interview on the Breakfast Club with Fat Joe?
Oh man, yo, yeah. First and foremost, shout out to your cousin Mariah. She hit me up immediately, and I'll be making hers this weekend and stuff like that, man. But yeah, with the whole you talking about with Fat Joe, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, with Fat Joe. Yes. What you think?
yeah, yeah. Shout out to Banana Red. Shout out to Banana. Yo. With Fat Joe, I think that that was the perfect way to play the victim. That's exactly what he did. If you sit back and you listen to him, you see him pulling the same tactic in which other race groups do once we begin to start claiming and stepping up to what we own. Then you see other race groups start playing a victim. You hear Fat Joe, he was saying that he if you pick apart his what he was saying, it's pretty much contradictory to what his lifestyle is, what he shows his lifestyle to be as far as in the public. Um, I don't know if you know if you knew this, Ron G. He was actually out here in Atlanta. I didn't know about it until like the same day of someone told me, and I was like, let me look this up because I don't just take people's words for what it is. I go and really try to research it, and he was really out here in Atlanta. And dude was giving he's at Slutty Vegan, which is an all black restaurant, all black owned restaurant, and he was giving away free food from 4:30 to 7:30. Now Fat Joe says that he's always been doing this, trying to bring together the black and Latino community. This is what Fat Joe is saying. He's always been trying to bring together the black and Latino community. That's not necessarily true. From I don't know what he does personally. This is what he said in the Breakfast Club. I don't know what he does personally, but he's definitely not putting forth the effort and what it takes to eliminate that divide amongst the Latino and Black community. Rather, he believes it or not, there's been a divide amongst the Black and Latino community, and it's been there for centuries. This is not just something that just came up all about just because of hip hop. It's been that way. They have a divide amongst each other. Puerto Ricans and Dominicans can't get along with each other. They don't really lay claim to each other being of the same lineage. I've seen them argue and fight in front of the bodegas in New York over one being Puerto Rican, one being Dominican. They say if one don't speak the dialect of Spanish properly, the other one says the other one doesn't. That's them. So they have that divide. They also have that divide amongst the lighter skin, the lighter skinned Puerto Ricans and the darker skinned Dominicans, in which they look just alike. You even have darker Dominicans, darker Puerto Ricans, but they still at war with each other. They're still at they're still at a divide. Fat Joe is not trying to really, he's not working hard enough to really try to bring the communities together because he don't know how to do so. The reason why he don't know how to do so and how to bring the Black and Latinos communities together because he don't know the histories and how the histories link up and how to bring us back together. Fat Joe said on the Breakfast Club that he's been trying for the longest to stop saying the N-word. That's what he said. He's been trying for the longest, and he spoke with someone else, and they even put him onto the game about stop saying the N word. And 3 minutes later, 3 seconds later, he said the other guy that was telling him that I was putting him on to the history behind the N word said the N word 3 or 4 times a couple of seconds after. But if Fat Joe really wanted to end that right now, he's got the ears of a lot of Latinos. He can simply go on record, on an interview, on an intro to his album, an outro to his album. He can go on tour and simply say this: I want all Latinos to stop using the N-word in front of blacks, behind blacks' backs when you behind closed doors, and don't use it on each other. This is all he has to do. Go on record and tell people not to do this, and they will stop because they respect him, because they follow him. That's one of their leaders to them. So if he says that, we're not talking about being perfect versus, of perfect with you never using it again. You may slip up sometimes. We're not talking about the slip ups. We're talking about getting that message out there. This is if you're saying you're against using the N word, but then he said he can't stop using the N word because it's been used on him. But then earlier in the interview, he goes on to talk about this book that he wrote and how he learned how to control his anger issues. He learned how to control his weight, and he lost weight. He started off having diabetes, and now their doctors can't detect it. And he said nobody in the hood ever taught him that you can get rid of diabetes simply by losing weight. This is what he said, bro. So that means he has a large amount of control. But when it comes down to using the N word that affects other people and other race groups, he's saying he can't stop doing it. It's hard for him to do that. So let's rewind it though, Warren G. So when it comes down to things affecting his health and affecting his family, he has the control. He has the control in between what managers he chooses, what agents he chooses, what records he wants to be selected and what records he does not want to be selected on his album, what tours he want to go on, what tours he don't want to go on. He has a chance to decide where and when videos will be done. He has his own organization in the Terror Squad in which he makes choices. So he has control. He has control over his kids, over his wife, but he has no control over saying the N-word. So you have no discipline when it comes to something that will affect black people. Oh, I forgot. That's because it's been used on him so much that he can't stop saying it. So if he grew up with people calling him an idiot, retard, slow, unintelligent, is that what he's going to continue to call himself because it's been used on him? No, it's not. Fat Joe says that he began to start promoting black and Latinos. That's why he did the song Boricua and Moreno on the song with Big Pun. That's not a fact. Big Pun did that song. That's Big Pun's song. And I'm not a player. I just crush a lot. That's Big Pun's song. And Big Pun has African ancestry in his background. That's no yo. If you look for Big Pun's mother, she's been under the radar because she's been like it's been said she's been robbing banks and stuff like that. But that's alleged. But they've saying they got her on camera and everything. I looked it up and they're saying that. Um, but Big Pun's mother and Big Pun's grandmother, these are black women. You can take a look at them and see that. I know two of Big Pun's cousins that I grew up with. I'm not close friends with them from a distance, but they're black. Like they're black like me. They're dark like me. And that's his cousins from the same grandmother. Big Pun has African ancestry. Big Pun has a black background. He's not FBA, but Big Pun has definitely got a black background. So he can try to say, I'm trying to bring the black and Puerto Ricans together. Big Pun is trying to do that. And Big Pun was doing that without even saying it. You know what I'm saying? But here it is, Fat Joe is coming along saying he's been trying to do that, and it's always been like that. No, he has not. I've been around, I don't know Fat Joe, but I know I've been around his organizations before, like, and watched them from a distance. Fat Joe is the type of guy you get what you see. Like, whatever he's saying, that's what he's saying behind your back. Like, you know what I'm saying? So if he's talking nonsense in front of you, he's gonna talk nonsense behind your back. That's just how it is. So he is one of those dudes you get what you see. But on the other hand, he's definitely not putting forth the effort to bring Black and Latinos together. Again, he can simply say, yo, you know what? We need to all get along. We need to stop all of this. You're not the same as me because I speak Spanish and you don't. Yo, we all come from the same type of people. He can easily put that in there, but he does not. So he's continuing the divide. He also doesn't talk about how, I'm talking about on a Breakfast Club, how he was getting on Bill Cosby and saying Bill Cosby was guilty when black people was trying to stand behind Bill Cosby. Fat Joe got on his Instagram Live and was talking about how you can't duck what these women are saying. These women got to be telling the truth because all of them can't be wrong and nobody's going to be up against. He started talking all of this stuff, man. But then he sits up there and try to play the victim as if he's not trying to be a divide amongst black people and Latinos. He doesn't even know his own history to the Latinos. He don't even understand that Latino comes from Latin, which is a language or a dialect or the breakdown from one translation to the other, translating a word or having a root word and not understanding that these Latins originally were white, coming from Portugal, coming from Spain. So there's a lot of white Spaniard Puerto Ricans. They have no lineage to us. You know what I'm saying? Rather abroad or homeland. But he needs to get that through to his people too. What is he doing in Atlanta giving away free food in a heavily black populated area? Edgewood, Atlanta. That's heavily black populated. Why are you there? Why did you travel driving wise from New York to Atlanta? It's about 14, 15 hours. Flying a plane is about 2 or 3 hours. Why did you leave your community surrounded by Latinos and come down here to give away free food to blacks? I'll tell you why. He's pulling the same tactic that the Democrats and Republicans pull. He's trying to gain his favor back with the blacks because he know that a lot of us are not feeling him. That's just Charlamagne the God and all of those Sambos who is agreeing with him and talking about how black Latinos was involved with hip hop 50-50. Yeah, that's them. They got an agenda. They got gay flags and all that hanging up behind them. You notice when they had Dr. Clyde Anderson on there, Dr. Clyde Anderson said, don't you put me on that side. Don't put me on that side. I'm good. You see what I'm saying? So my thing is why here? Trying to gain favoritism back. Why not go to Mexico? Go to Uvalde and give food out to the people there. Go to Florida. Give food out to people. There's Latinos in Florida. In the Bronx, his hometown. There's Latinos there. You can never give away food too frequently to a group of people. Somebody's always going to be in need. So give there continuously. Stay where you are in your hometown and help your people. But no, Fat Joe flies down here. And that's all in sight of him hosting the BET Awards. They're doing this, Warren G and Banana, because of the fact they're trying to colonize our culture. This is it right here. Like, I'm really going to be on this heavy, bro, and my sis, because if we don't take control of our own culture when it comes to hip hop, that's it. We're done. We're done. As a black people, as the FBA, we're done. I'm not just talking about just the ability to just rap and make music. I'm talking about the elements that go into it. DJing, breakdancing, MCing, graffiti. That all goes, those are elements that came out of the struggle of our ancestors. The whole reason in which why we call ourselves a lineage, because we understand that our ancestors built this country from when the country had nothing. So if this country and this economy was built off of the backs of our ancestors, we have to take control of what our ancestors built. If we don't, with this whole hip hop, we're done. That's the last of the Mohegans right there. We are done. They took away our history. I wouldn't say 100% because we are gaining that with our historical memory that's planted in our DNA by our ancestors. So we're getting that. But a lot of us are not doing enough with it. As a whole, as a nation, we haven't even claimed ourselves as a nation. You know? So if we don't take control of this, it's a wrap. I understand that Fat Joe is trying to make his money. I understand that Fat Joe is not well versed on history and historical facts. But when you get up on Breakfast Club and try to justify you using the N word or you being a part of the black community by saying Minister Farrakhan even calls you black man, well, I have to object because as much as I like Minister Louis Farrakhan, he's not the greatest leader we have or had. He's not. He's not a Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. He's not a Elijah Muhammad. He's not Marcus Garvey. He's not Dr. Claude Anderson. Let's see if you stood up in front of if Fat Joe stood up in front of Dr. Claude Anderson. What Dr. Claude Anderson gonna call Fat Joe? He gonna call him an immigrant. He's gonna call him an immigrant who came over here, whose parents came over here, or great grandparents came over here for unearned benefits. And I'm very disgusted by some of these black folks who say there's bigger topics to discuss. We don't need to discuss this. I'm saying, what are you talking about? These elements, our ancestors played a huge part in creating. They created this out of the toughest times in which they faced. We got to think about it. During the times in which black folks was being lynched, hung off of the bridges, whole families hung off the bridges, black people were still trying to create a new avenue of economy for ourselves by breakdancing. They were saying, well, listen, if we're going to move from the south to the north, we might as well call ourselves the new Negroes, not just, Negroes. Now, I don't think they should label themselves Negroes at all, but they did the best that they could do at that time. You know what I'm saying? So our creativity is involved in those elements. So when black folks say there's bigger topics to discuss, people literally died over trying to perform these things. Louis Armstrong was called a nigger and a boy thousands of times when before he was performing, before performance and after, during, all of that. You see, you had Ella Baker who was called nigger and was mistreated before and after her performances. We got to really take a look into our black artists, not just our historians or our inventors or our black artists. We really got to take a look. When you look at break dancing, a lot of that is boogieing. You can see it. It's boogie, the boogie dance. Now, boogieing, a lot of that comes from the whole 52 blocks fighting style. It's a martial art. And when you look at the 54 blocks fighting style, you see boogieing all in there. Blacks developed that from having to fight their way in jail because they had the police guard, they had the COs going in there, setting people on fire, beating blacks down nearly to death. So they had to develop a different fighting style. But that fighting style was already in their DNA. They just reinforced it. This is facts, bro. Like this is if you. I'm not saying nothing in which I don't know. If I didn't know it, I wouldn't be saying it. I don't like looking like a fool, or I don't like assuming. But we gotta take a look at what Fat Joe's motive is here. When you look at, lastly, I'll say, when you look at the Republicans or the Democrats, either one, when they want our vote, what do? They come to our neighborhoods where it's heavily black populated. They haven't been there all year. Then that's when they make promises. We're going to release a lot of black men from jail. We're going to straighten out the educational system. We're definitely going to put in a good word for the HR 40 bill so you guys can have your reparations. They start saying these things. We're going to fight for the abortion. They say things in which they think we want, or they believe that we want. The first place they hit up is the churches. Then they send their little minions out to hit the streets. They don't hit the streets themselves. They send their little minions out, which so happen to be some of our people a lot of the times, unfortunately, to make these phone calls and do all this outreach, similar to what Jehovah's Witnesses do. So Stacey Abrams gave she said here in Georgia, if people were to vote Democrat, bro, they would give out the Democrats, they would give out collard greens to black people. They gave out collard greens to black folks after they voted Democrat here in Georgia. There was a line and they were giving out collard greens. There was also a dance line. People were doing the electric slide, I believe it's called, that they did in the old school in the 80s. And they did the electric slide. They were dancing out here after they voted for Joe Biden. Warren G, this is not, if you were to, I would like for everybody on here to pretend that I'm lying and look and just go on and look at video footage, not just like reading, but video footage of what I'm saying. They gave out collard greens here in Georgia to black people after they voted Democrat. They were doing the electric slide out here. They were trying to gain a vote. And this is what they do. Whenever they want our favor, they give away food because they're looking at it as if, hey, you guys, only thing you want is something a little small. So you get your little food, little poor black people, we get that to you, and you're going to hold us in favor in high regards, and you're always going to vote Democrat because your civil rights leaders always told you to vote Democrat anyway. So we're just going to give you little doggy biscuits, I guess. And that's what they do. You know what I'm saying? So Fat Joe just I don't know if he was aware or unaware. That one I don't know. But he just reiterated the same behavior that those politicians illustrated. We're going to go to the hood to gain a vote. But first we got to get them food like animals that they are. Remember, Joe Biden did say that we were animals. We were criminals. And we need to be off the streets. That's what he said. And so we're going to give them food like the animals, and they're going to give us what we want. And once we get back on our feet, we're never going to give them what they need as a nation. We're going to transfer their resources to another race group, and we're going to give them this credit. They did the same thing with our history. They colonized our history. It started out from Kemet or Egypt, and it started out with blacks. Then the Arabs and the Europeans came over. start destroying our historical artifacts and arts, then the whites start saying we was there when they built the pyramids. They went from we being there to now they built the pyramids. You got the Arabs over there saying, well, you know what? We was there when they built the pyramids. We was there. We was there. And then 100 years later, now they taking over Egypt. And for you and I to go and see what our ancestors built over there, we got to pay these creeps money to see what our ancestors created. And they're telling us, you know what, we had part in creating it. They went from we was there to we had part in creating it. Now we created it. We built the pyramids. And then you got movies later on that shows that. You know what I'm saying? So I'll end it there, my brother. That's what I think in full.
Ooh. Man, I got one more. I got one more, man, because I'm trying to keep it concise. You know what I mean? Because I wanna really, really, really. The next time we do this, whether it's on your podcast, and by the way, everybody need to go check out uh No Compromise TV, the podcast. Please go check that out. Whoever's in here, I know our sister Banana will, but I know my peoples is checking you out. And before we go to the next question, I just wanted to give you props, my brother. I feel like you kind of inspired us, and you inspired me to interview my other family members because my cousin was going in, and I didn't even know she had all that knowledge in her like that. But we do appreciate you, and I'm gonna ask you this question, and I'll open it up to whoever wants to ask, wants to answer. Do you feel like I feel like this time the Breakfast Club did a good job of just kind of letting him speak, letting Fat Joe speak, and they were being more on his side. So I think they were probably being more kind of on the same side as him. But I would also say that they allowed him to keep speaking because a lot of times, and let me just preface this: when a person is interviewing you, it is their job kind of not be to be oppositional, but then not be oppositional. So you could be an antagonist and a protagonist. And I felt like Charlemagne did a good job of kind of placating. Maybe he was just kissing ass, but I'm glad he did it because then Fat Joe still went on another rant about, the things that he said. Now, my question is this. Now that we know, and I've been saying this, is Fat Joe a hindrance to foundational Black Americans? And is he an agent for the system of racism and white supremacy? Or is he just a person that knows no history and just dumb and just happen to have a lot of fame and just running his mouth? Whoever wants to go first here, I'll let me grant my this other person here, the Black Native. Go ahead. If you want to go first, and I'll let my brother David go last. I just granted you the permission to speak. So that's the question. Is Fat Joe an agent for the system of racism and white supremacy? Or is he just a dummy that has no idea of what's going on? You can go first, Black Native.
Okay, thank you for hosting the space. Peace to the host, peace to the co-host, and peace to the sister Banana at the bottom. I'm from New York, born and raised. Was there pretty much when hip hop started out. Nobody knew Fat Joe. Nobody knew Hispanics rapping, doing hip hop. They participated in break dancing. They did graffiti, but there was no Hispanic rap artist, rap group, no female Hispanic rap group, no Hispanic rapper. They had Lisa and the Coat Jam. But she got she made it big because of the black people that was her backup. I think Bow-Legged Lou and some other people. So yeah, it was that shit was non-existent. You know, he's created this fairy tale and fabricated this whole story as if black people ain't still around and was there when, you know, hip hop and the origins of hip hop were created. Like we just died off. So I believe, and this is what Hispanic and Puerto Ricans have always done, they'll live in your communities, they'll live in the hoods, they'll live be your next door neighbors in the projects, suffer the same type of poverty, degradation. But when it comes down to um, voting with black people for issues that will help all of us, they've always went against us. This is their history. I've said this years ago. Like I don't understand how you could be you're living right next door to me, but you always vote against your own best interests and against what black people want so you could be closer to whiteness. I know y'all seen Fat Joe's like second or third grade picture. Looks like a straight Italian. And he been lying talking about he was black because he bald headed so you can't see how his hair was growing when he was younger. Fat Joe was a nobody. He ain't even on the top 20 or 30 list of hip hop rappers. He's probably like 99 out of 100. I'm keeping it real. I mean, if it wasn't for Remy Ma with the Terror Squad, if it wasn't for Chris Brown making one of his songs hot, he's fucking he's nobody. I mean, even Big Pun admitted to it. I just retweeted that he thanked Black Americans for allowing them to come into our culture. Hispanics was playing fucking calypso music and muchacha and that merengue music. You wouldn't go in no Hispanic people house and they playing hip hop. We not gonna act like, you know. I don't understand where he comes off doing this. BET is not owned by black people. I'm sure we all know that by now. They were trolling us. Literally, they were picking at the beer for the Hispanic community. We got to look into that and see what's the reason behind that. If we're supposed to be your main base, your main audience, why would you troll us? Why would you put Fat Joe to host the hip hop awards knowing the beef that was going on Twitter? They seen it, and that's the reason they did it. That's a slap in the face to so-called black entertainment television. Um, Fat Joe is a opportunist, a liar, a fraud, a fake, and a phony. What he's done, and I'm glad you said he was on. I didn't watch the Breakfast Club interview. I saw clips, and he just put his foot in his fucking mouth. You know what I'm saying? And he knows he knows damn well Hispanics or Latinos didn't invent hip hop. Neither did the reggae people, because they had I mean the Jamaicans, they had reggae music, and even Bob Marley, even all of the old school reggae performers said they stole their style and their dress code and their style from Black American people in the 60s. You can see their fucking album covers. It looks just like Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. Like, we're not going to keep playing these games. It's a reason behind it. They're trying to, white people, they're doing what white people have done. White people have stole every aspect of our being, our culture, our music, our livelihood. If they could steal our souls, they probably try to do that too. You know what I'm saying? This is what they're doing. Fat Joe is just another old, washed up, white Hispanic, because he's not black, doing what white people have done to us for centuries. He's on the bandwagon. It's something that he's getting out of it. I heard they're building a museum in New York, and they want to be part of that. And now they want to come and rewrite history and say that they created it. No, you came out in the 90s. Okay, wasn't nobody in the 80s rapping. I want to know what Hispanic. I know the Beastie Boys, and they were Jews. They bit off of us. Then you had Third Base. They came out in the 90s. That was another white group who acknowledged pretty much, but then one of them did try to say Rakim stole his style, and then Rakim had to come and check his ass. But I mean, they acknowledged it. They didn't come flat out and say, "Oh, we helped create hip hop." Everybody around the world knows that Black American people created hip hop. You got people in Japan, Arabs, Asians, Africans, everybody emulating our culture. And everybody knows. Ain't nobody said, "Oh, you know what? Hispanics had something to do with that." You ain't never heard that from nobody around the world. Everybody knows we created it. I want to know, what is his motives? Is there some money involved? What's really going on? And why is he participating in the supposedly takeover of our culture? I need to understand what's his motive behind it all. Because like I said, I was there. I know wasn't no damn Hispanic people scratching, mixing tapes. Wasn't nobody out there in the street lights when I mean, they was there dancing with us, but they wasn't the fucking DJs. They wasn't rapping. None of that shit was popping off in New York. I'll land my plane. Thank you.
Wow. Shout out to that sister. she, look, you had me angry because what you were saying was facts. You had me sad because what you were saying is facts, and then you had me laughing because everything you said was facts, and I totally 100% agree with you. We also have that. Let's remind us of this. I have to speak to this real quick. What this sister Black Native was saying. You're right. Let's break down the history grid. BT, Bob Johnson sold it for $1 billion or $2 billion to Viacom. Viacom owns BET. Viacom is in partnership with CBS. It's two parts. So you have the CBS side, then you have the Viacom side, and they all up under one corporation umbrella. But the Viacom side is owned by our wonderful, illustrious, white dominant society Jewish family, the Redstones, the same family that pulled Nick Cannon, our brother, our foundational Black American brother's collar when he had Professor Griff on his podcast. And they yanked his chain and took away his show and took away his money. We have to know who the payers are. And the reason why I'm stating this is, and David, I had a person ask me, why is it such a big deal? You weren't there. I said, I challenge you, about slavery. Because I said, my response to people is always, well, my people built this country for free. We're waiting repayment for what is owed. There's a debt that's owed. And what was told to me was, just out of curiosity, oh, well, but that happened so long ago. You weren't there. I don't understand what the big deal is. I said, well, I challenge you to go tell a dominant society, white Jewish person that wasn't there during the Holocaust. And I guarantee you what's going to happen is you'll never work in the United States of America again. Ever.
Brother, I just put in the Jumbotron the face of BET. If
Yes, I see it.
you
Good
see?
looking out. Yes, ma'am. That's her. That's the Redstones. Those are the same white Jewish family. And look, it's not that we're anti-Jewish, we're anti-Semitic. It's not that. I just use them as an example because they are so powerful because they stick together. That's why I'm using that. And I think we all need to understand this one point, and then I'm going to land my plane and I'm going to go to Banana and then no comp. We have to understand, use that as an example. When a person tells foundational Black Americans, oh, it happened so long ago, challenge them and say, will you tell a white Jewish person why are you bringing up the Holocaust? Because that happened so long ago and you weren't there. Challenge them. Because when I challenged this individual, they had crickets. They didn't have nothing to say because they knew what I was saying was actually factual. And I'm going to go
Why we
ahead and let...
celebrate the 4th of July? We celebrate the 4th of July.
Exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and... Hold on. All right. Sister Banana, go ahead, man. Give us your response to the question. Is Fat Joe an agent for the system of racism and white supremacy?
Hey everyone. First of all, shout out to you. No compromise. Our sister Black Native. I've been in spaces with her. She always come correct, always come real solid, real very, very, very solid sister. Ain't no game. She's serious about that. Um, Fat Joe, Fat Joe is doing they couldn't get nobody white to do it, so they had to sneak their way in doing it, and they did it in a conniving way because they kind of used Busta Rhymes with it too a little bit because he's black, I guess, whatever, and so they kind of like, and they got him to co-sign it too, so people already have a following. So what they did was they stacked like a cake, a layer of cake, and just kind of like just started building on whatever they could build it on. The only person that they could find that would co-sign all of this, and BT jumped in and started doing all of this stuff, and they had to take posts down and stuff. And it's interesting when the thing that you were saying about people talking about, oh, that was so long ago with slavery and everything. Every time we talk about somebody Jewish, there's so many stories. This thing with the Carolyn Bryant situation that they still know, we don't have no information. But then you have that man who was 100 and something years old, who was a Nazi. They put him in jail. So every time there's always a Jewish reference that we could use. And every Jewish reference that's used, they get the exact opposite that we get. They get it in their favor. We get it against our favor, no matter what the situation is. So Fat Joe is being used. He's basically a white man pretty much, and he's trying to like do like, why you go to Atlanta and serve food to black people? Like, what's that about? What, you went all the way to Atlanta? You know that you was, so that incident that happened before the awards, regardless of whenever it happened, we knew that he was going to be in Atlanta. So it's pandering. It's why do it's so disrespectful to just pander to us just like the white man does. That's all he's saying, is that he's the face of them and he'll do whatever it takes. Then he's around, and black people, do Latinos really respect him like that? um I have questions about it, but he don't have no respect around here. Everybody know that he's just a fraud. He fake. Nobody said stuff about, I grew up, I was born in 76, and when 83, 84, whatever, the rappers and stuff, everybody pretty much was black. Beastie Boys, like she said, was them, and then Third Base, but you didn't hear about nobody else. I mean, they had people dancing and stuff or whatever, but come on. Nobody never said that. I'm not that stupid. When somebody just try to pull a bag over your head like you weren't, like you just stupid, they're gonna paint a narrative that you know for a fact something as simple as this. If they could pull this over on us, they'll try to pull any over on it. People have to be, we have to do like No Compromise said, not just our inventors, not just, we have to do our artists too, because they've been getting us too long with everything. I mean, people want to say our stuff, our slangs. Ain't nobody got time for this. They had fun about that. Anything we say, they like, oh goodness, we are the culture. Let's just keep it real. And I'm gonna land right there. And thank y'all for listening, and thank y'all for holding the space.
No
Yes, I,
problem, no problem. Thank you for that, sister. I appreciate it. We're gonna get one more in, and we're gonna get David. And hold on for just 1 second. All right. The Rashawn Graham, FBA Freedman. You've been unmuted. Go ahead and speak your piece about Fat Joe being an agent for the system of racism, white supremacy.
Hey, my name is Rashawn. I can't stand Fat Joe and all this mess with all this going on. I remember being young. I was born in '72. I was born and raised out here in LA. And there's no damn well. They know damn well that this all this junk is a lie. And I hope BT fails big time. And on Fat Joe, I hope he sinks, because saying all this stuff is very disrespectful. You know, I grew up. Banging and everything, all that kind of stuff back in the day, and knowing what's up with hip hop. Hip hop is foundational Black American. It's a Black American thing. It came up that way. Now, as Tariq says, Puerto Ricans were, some of them were around, and some of them were kind of involved later on, but not in the beginning. You know, we're not having this crap. We're not doing that rock and roll and jazz stuff they took from us, and country music. This ain't happening again. And that's all I'm going to say. I just wanted to say my piece when it come to that. I didn't really speak too much. All right, thanks, brother.
Appreciate you, sister. I'm coming back to you, Black Native. Uh, hey, much love to my brother, the Freeman, Rashawn Graham. I don't want to butcher your name. I'm from LA. I'm very familiar with gang culture, and I'm very familiar with the early stages of hip hop. Not as familiar as maybe people on the East Coast, but I never, ever, ever heard anybody talking about Fat Joe in the '80s. Ever. I never heard anybody talk about no Latino in the '80s. But that's neither here nor there. Black Native, go ahead, speak your piece, and then finally we're gonna go to No Comp, and then that'll be it. Go ahead, sister.
Yeah, I had agree with brother Rashad. You know, they pretty much we there wouldn't be any music in America if it wasn't for black people. We've created every genre of music in this country. I was arguing with a white guy on Twitter, and I was like, "What music did y'all create?" And he was like, "Country." I'm like, "No." I was like, "No, that was our people." Then he was like, "Tech music." I'm like, "No, that was our people." I said, "Y'all might have polka, or river dancing. I'll give you that." And I got to do more investigation on that to see if y'all even created that. But what they do is like he said, country music, jazz music, what else? Rock and roll. There's no real R&B. You notice they fizzled that out, so you don't really have R&B anymore. They try to make the white dude from England and Justin Timberlake and the other white guy that got sued, Robin Thicke, the face of R&B. See, this is what white people do. So yeah, he's taking the playbook because he is a white boy. He's not black. I don't know why he lied when we see his baby pictures. He's not black. He don't have no black looks like in him to even to say that. That was a deflection because see, he probably was plotting this shit for years. He was low key hating on black people. He's put himself in certain positions of hip hop where he thinks he's the authority. Just like Versus. Versus was created by Timberland and Swiss Beats. Now Fat Joe then weasel his fat ass, and now he's like the commentator for Versus. Who gave you that position? He puts himself in this artful somewhat for allowing this dude to feel comfortable in our house. It's like I'll come in your house and you invite me in, and all of a sudden I'm in your refrigerator, and I'm not asking if I'm like, hey, just walk in there. Then I go in your refrigerator, then I cook some food. Next, I'm sitting with my feet up on your chair, drinking your Cavassier or your Hennessy. I didn't got too comfortable, and we've allowed it. And I thought it was going white. I thought it was going to be white people because that's what they do. I was like, in another 20 years, they're going to say they invented hip hop. Surprise! It's the Hispanics and one Jamaican, Busta Rhymes, who said he had
In
more in
and out.
common with Hispanics than he did. Huh? I'm sorry.
No, your phone was like going in and out, so it was kind of like,
Oh, okay. I said I thought it was going to be white people that was going to steal our culture. um, because you started seeing a lot of white people getting into hip hop. And I was like, oh, they about to do the same thing they did with rock and roll, country, and jazz. But it was Fat Joe, the white Hispanic, who's doing this, and then Busta Rhymes, who had the nerve to say he had more in common with Hispanics. But I don't remember seeing any Hispanics in Leaders of the New School or Tribe Called Quest or Black Sheep. I ain't seen no Hispanics in there, so I'm confused. Flip Mode. Did he have any Hispanics in Flip Mode? I ain't see that. So for him to say that all of a sudden, like when he's like, I was born in 1977. So this dude is what, 55 maybe? All of a sudden now you trying to rewrite shit when the whole time in the 90s I ain't see you rap with near Hispanic person. When? And Fat Joe came out in what, 91 or 92 with one song. Then he had to get black people to back him in order to sing that song Lean Back. Come on now. He's a one or two hit wonder. And now he's the expert on hip hop. He need to go sit down and eat his roast capone somewhere. I'm gonna land my plane. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sister, but you spit facts. We need you in every space. Finally, last but not least, my brother, no compromise, David, man. Is he an agent? Is he a dummy? Is he playing dumb? What do you think about Fat Joe?
I think that he's both. I think that he's an agent and he's playing dumb. I think that he's an agent for his own people. He's an agent for the Latino community. Um, I believe that he has no idea on what exactly systematic racism is. He said on a Breakfast Club interview that he can't stand it, and he said he can't stand systemic racism. Um, but he didn't speak too well to that. Right. And then if you listen to Fat Joe, we got to be careful with this because this is what artists do. They begin to learn how to act because they're in front of cameras a lot. And they have coaching, acting coaches who tell them what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. Then Fat Joe tries to capture the emotions of black people when he says in that Breakfast Club interview, he says, well, if I see a black woman down the street getting robbed, I think he said getting robbed or some criminal activity is happening against her, I'm going to jump in front. I'm going to jump in front of the danger for her. I'll put my life on the line for her. Now, that was his clincher. You see, because now he already then grabbed the Latinos when he said I'm talking about when on the Breakfast Club, just listening. He's already grabbed the Latinos he said, you know what, we were there. And he looked at Charlemagne and said, we were there, right? And Charlemagne said, yeah, 50-50, they've been there. Then he looked at Angela Yee, who is Latino. And she said, yeah. And DJ Envy, we already know he's half Latino. So he's like, he's shaking his head, just letting him speak. And he's saying, yeah, we were there. So he's got the Latinos. He's got their attention now. Now with the blacks, he's saying, listen, we was there. We had a Latino who had the video camera who recorded, because this was before the social media. He was recording blacks doing their breakdancing. So now he acknowledged that blacks was breakdancing. Now he got the blacks now. Then his clincher to finish us off, fatality. If I try to stop saying the N-word, but I just can't. He's turning himself into a victim. I can't. It's hard. Then he goes on. If I seen a black woman down the street getting robbed, I'll put my life on the line for her. Knowing that there's millions of people watching and listening to the Breakfast Club. A large majority of those millions of people is going to be blacks. Fat Joe, largest support comes from black people, believe it or not from Latinos, black people, because a lot of those Latinos still believe in those old values of that rap music, that's that black people music. We don't play that stuff. They listen to the guitar and they do their merengue and all that stuff, when they get out on the street. That's what they do. And so we got to pay very, very close attention. But when he spoke about hip hop, notice how he bigged up the Latinos. He put us at a certain place, a lower level, but he really put in the Latino. He really drilled in that message. The main message of him being on that show was Latinos was halfway responsible for creating hip hop. That was his message. He promoted that more than what he promoted his book, if you notice that. He promoted that message more than what he promoted his book. He spent about 2 minutes talking about his book. He spent about 7 minutes talking about how he got robbed from his own people that was working for him. But he spent about 13 to 15 minutes drilling in that Latinos was 50% responsible for hip hop being birthed here in America. Now, the problem that I have with that is that knowing that he's an agent, That part, I would say he's an agent for his people. Now, with him suffering from stupidity, he doesn't understand the historical facts. The historical facts behind hip hop being birthed here in America from black people is that it came from our struggle. That's what he don't get. The Jubilaries, I made a podcast about this. The Jubilaries in the 1930s and the 1940s were rapping. They were rapping. They were rhyming, and I mean rhyming. The Jubilaries. Again, I want everybody to, if you haven't heard of these people I'm talking about, pretend that I'm lying and go look this up yourself. Look at video footage. A lot of the time, videos are not going to lie. The Jubilaries were rapping already in the 1930s and the 1940s. In the 1930s and in the 1940s, at this time, the Latino population in America was less than 200,000 Latinos. And they weren't even classified as Latinos. They were classified as Mexican. You can't create, you cannot create a certain style if you weren't around or if you're not create that. So Latinos can't say they had a foot in with that when you weren't even around. They say hip hop was birthed in New York. There was no Latinos living in New York at this time. They were classified as Mexicans, and they were holding the Mexicans at this time at bay in Texas. The Mills Brothers, they performed a song called The Caravan. They had a couple of these brothers had some female singers, and they were singing and stuff. A couple of brothers broke out and started breakdancing. This is in the 1930s. The 1930s, the Mills Brothers. There's footage on this. Again, at this time, there is no Latinos classified as Latinos or Puerto Ricans or Cubans. These people are classified as Mexicans, and they're being held in the Bay in Texas. And again, 98% of these Latinos lived in Texas. They didn't live in New York. So if we're talking about, again, hip hop was birthed in New York, you can't birth something if you weren't there. You can't create in a land if you're not there to create it. Poetry, rap, MCing, all of that, if you want to go to it, in all honesty, the origins, we can push that back to the great griots, which originated in Africa, and then it continued all the way here. Here in America, we just advanced it, put it to some beats. Again, at this time, there's not even no such thing as a Latino at this time. The DJs and disc jockeys, that's what a DJ is. What do? They have the ability to do what? Select a song or select a record that's going to be played, right? They want to rock the house. They want to rock the party, block party, house party, whatever the case may be. That doesn't start from them. That starts from us. In the 1920s, you had black musicians from the Harlem Renaissance period that was selecting songs of their own choice of what they wanted to play or what they wanted to sing. Louis Armstrong was one of them. You know what I'm saying? And so, in a big fact, that's disc jockeying just without a disc. We can go back further than that with the blacks here in America that separated from the white church and formed their own church, the AME, or the African Methodist Episcopal Church, in 1787. They separated with them. One of the big reasons, the songs. It was amongst other reasons, equality, all that other stuff, but the songs. They created their own songs, their own way of doing things. They wanted independence in the way that their service was going to be conducted. This is in 1787. At this point, there's no such thing as a Cuban, Puerto Rican, anything like that. Mexico doesn't even have their independence yet. So there's no such thing as Latinos. There's Tainos who were partially exterminated by the French and the Spanish, when they came over to the land of Hispaniola, they were Tainos, but those Tainos is what? Black Aboriginal blacks who migrated from the Iberian Peninsula. So we not, come on, let's not really break it. I mean, if we really break it down, everything comes from us. Then graffiti, oh, that's easy. We could take that straight back to ancient Kemet, which is in what, 5000 BC. The hieroglyphs, writing on the wall, way of expression, saving your history, songs, all of that. During that time, the whole world is populated with black people. And those same people had descendants who went on to create graffiti here in America. So at this point, again, there's no whites, there's no Latinos, there's no Asians. It's just humanity, which is just black people. What Fat Joe and the Latino community has witnessed in the 1970s, they witnessed the end result of what happens when black expression is placed together with a multi-element to form one element, similar to Voltron or the Power Rangers, when they come together to form one. That's what they witnessed. So if Fat Joe want to stand side by side and say, well, we was there, we saw it. Okay, if that's what you want. If you only want to be credited for standing by and watching us create, I'll give you that. You stood by and watched us create. But when it was time for you to participate, we said, yes, you can. So when our brothers and sisters was breakdancing, rapping, when they was doing graffiti and all of that, you guys said, oh, can we try that too? You guys went home and practiced that behind closed doors and came back and said, can we be a part of it? And like gullible black, like the lovely black people that we are, we allow people to come into our culture. We started off as the host, ended up being the slaves. They colonized our history. They're trying to do the same thing here with our history being birthed in hip hop. I'm telling you, this is it right here. We got to be on this big time. We got to begin to start boycotting people like Fat Joe, who talks greasy about Bill Cosby, regardless of how you feel about him, right? Let black people handle that. Let black people deal with Bill Cosby behind closed doors. We don't need you to get on there and talk about black issues. You're not black. You're not. He's not. He's not black. Now, that's what I think, brother. I think he's an agent for his own community, because his community is being brought here in the droves, in the hordes, as immigrants to replace us. What greater way to replace us than replacing our history in hip hop? Knowing that we are the biggest supporters of hip hop, knowing that we are the creators of hip hop, what bigger way to do so? This is how it happens. Again, they colonized our history and then sold it back to us. They colonized our religions or our faith systems and then sold back to us a carbon copy. They're trying to do the same thing here. And if we're not careful as black people to start boycotting people like this, hit them where it hurts the most with their pockets, by the time our grandchildren are born, the whole black people FBA gave birth to hip hop is going to be non-existent, because those people with that knowledge is going to be far gone removed. Our grandchildren will be looking at us like, oh, not this stuff again. The same black stuff. It's going to become boring to them. They've done the same thing with our history and everything. So we got to be very careful with people like this. We got to beware of the fakers. And Fat Joe is illustrating that he is a faker. He's an agent for his people, and he's definitely suffering from stupidity of racism, white supremacy, not understanding it. And let's not believe him when he talked about Farrakhan called him a black man, or called him said peace black man, until Dr. Claude Anderson, John Henry Clark, or Dr. Joy DeGruy, people like that who are still alive, when or who have passed and gone on, or Dr. Ben, and when those people look at you and call you a black man, then we can talk. Otherwise, you not. He's not. So I call for us as black people. If you're serious about it, if you're frustrated about this, start boycotting. Don't support him and call on other people to boycott. I bet you he'll come back running to us like he's doing with trying to give away food. But in that case, in a different case, he's going to have to admit he was wrong, we was right. That's what we have to do. That's what I believe, my brother.
I appreciate everybody coming to this space. It was only supposed to be 30 minutes. I do got, I got to get out of here. I appreciate everyone. We do these weekly, but my brother is busy. David, everybody go check out No Compromise TV, the podcast. Please check him out. And you can hear a lot of his views and perspectives on things. And I'm always interviewing him. And I appreciate everybody. Hey, y'all live life, stay in y'all lane, and go check out that Fat Joe interview on the Breakfast Club. And we're gonna reconvene and try to get another space going sometime next week. I'm out of here, man. Y'all take care.